All right. Well, we're going to do some math today, unfortunately for everybody, because math is an acronym for, we got it up on the board here? Not yet? Yeah. Math it's an acronym for mental abuse to humans. It's really what our educational system has done with math. Like he said, they just kind of sprung this on me. So I threw this together in like an hour or two or something like that, as my friend was dumping some tequila down my throat last night. Guy I haven't seen in a while. So anyway, so we'll see how this goes. I just want to let everybody know too, Mercury just went into retrograde today. So if this whole thing goes south, we're just going to blame the stars. We can also blame David Weiss. David Weiss, I wasn't even going to be coming here. And David Weiss is like, everybody here know David Weiss? Yeah, right? Yeah, he's like, Marty, you totally need to come to the Flat Earth Conference, right? So I was like, Dave, dude, I'm kind of broke, man. I've had a rough year. He's like, no, Marty, you got to come. And then he's like, he's like, Marty, have you ever been in a room with 200 people that are fully awake? And I was like, no, I haven't. I don't even think I've been in a room with like 3 people that are fully awake. So needless to say, he got my ass on a plane. So if this thing goes south, we're going to blame Dave. If it goes well, I'm taking all credit. So just so you know. Have to get a ribbon on Dave there. I just want to say first and foremost, I want to really give props to all the people that are out there that are speaking truth to power. They're standing up, saying the most uncomfortable thing you could possibly say, and that's the earth is flat. I had to spring that on my parents at one point, which is interesting. So, and they still love me. It's amazing. But I seriously want to give props to all those people that are out there that are making videos, doing podcasts, like Nathan Thompson. He's out there on the street every single day trying to get people awake to this. It's truly like an honor to be a part of this whole movement. I've done some like other conferences before, and I got to say, like, I don't want to rip on people or anything like that, but some of these other conferences you go to, and like 1 out of 4 people you meet are like really weird. You're just kind of like, whoa, right? But here hasn't been that at all. It's been super cool. Everybody's been so chill. It's been thus far, it's been an awesome experience. So I just want to say props to all those people that are out there pushing flat. You're doing God's work. You are. You see, and you're shining a light on the darkness, and just don't, when people say, "Oh, flat Earth is all so stupid," you just gotta remember that, if you think flat earthers are stupid, this guy thinks that the world is a vampire. So, and I have yet to see one scientific proof that the Earth is a vampire, by the way. So, Billy Corgan, go back to Smashing Pumpkins, I think. So, yes. So, who am I? I am Marty Leeds. 33. I have a website, martyleeds33.com, and I'm also on YouTube. I had a YouTube site at one point, had, 45,000 subscribers, and then YouTube shut that down. Of course, that's happening to a lot of people, but YouTube is kind of the Indian giver of the internet. They're like, hey, you can broadcast yourself. And then they're like, you start speaking truth. They're like, oh, sorry, can't do that. So they took my channel down, and then I have another channel, Marty Leeds Live on YouTube, and I can't live stream on that at all, so that's kind of false advertising at my point. So anyway, they took that channel, or they gave me a strike, so I can't even live stream there. So you can get me on martyleeds33.com, and some of you may know a video I did called Flat Earth, the Ultimate Litmus Test. As far as I know, it's been mirrored a couple times, and it's been seen by like over 1 million people, which is insane. It's amazing. Really proud of that film. I hope you all watch it. And I also have a show, the Marty Leeds Math Magical Radio Hour. And if you see, there's a Freemasonic square and compass up there. And I'm also Marty Leeds 33. That triggers a lot of people. I just want to say that basically I tackle those subjects, pretty controversial subjects like number 666, 13, 33, what all this stuff means. And I try to bring some clarity to it because there's a lot of misconceptions, a lot of misrepresentation, a lot of this information. And so I try to do my best to clarify that and really show people that really what you have going on in the nefarious aspects of the world is these people, these Luciferian satanic people that are basically taking a sacred system of information and twisting it and perverting it. And that's essentially what they're doing. So that's basically what I try to explain on, my show, videos and things like that. And then I've had some good guests on my podcast. Crow 777, David Weiss was on the show. So if you guys, I just interviewed True Stream Media. If you guys want to check that out, pretty proud of the show. And my website and on my YouTube channel, I cover a host of different topics. I mean, just a bunch of different stuff. You know, I did a midnight mass, which I'll be doing another this year. I do basically what I do is the main focus really is decoding the Bible mathematically. And though we're not going to get into gematria a little bit here, I'm going to take a sort of a different route today. But that's really the focus of the work. I look at the name of Jesus Christ. I look at verses in Scripture, Genesis 1:1, 1:2, 1:3, Revelation. I look at John. I look at all of that, and basically sort of deconstruct it. And then I also do things like I've got a video deocculting the International Space Station. I've got deocculting Elon Musk, which is I really encourage people to go check those out. So, and basically the work, and I'm just going to cover this really quick, just to give, if you don't know who I am or what it is I do, kind of a little brief overview of the focus of the work that I do is, what you see on the screen right there is it's a cipher, and it's a cryptogram or a cipher. And what it is the English alphabet, as you can see there. And what I've done is basically put numbers to the letters of the English alphabet in a certain way that this is actually called, it's a septenary cipher. And this number to letter correlation, I actually got directly from the Bible itself. So it's a cipher that I'm trying to lay the evidence for that was encoded in the Bible that allows us to actually deconstruct and see that the Bible itself is it's a mathematical document, that there are mathematical underpinnings in the Bible. And that's essentially the focus of the work. As you can see there, it goes A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z, and it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and does that on both sides of the alphabet, lands on the G and T. And this, what actually happens is, like I said, I'm just going over this sort of brief, but the word 7, which is the whole cipher, is based on the number 7. We're going to be covering the number 7 here a bit today. But the whole cipher is based on the number 7, and 7 equals 22 in this cipher, and 22 divided by 7 is pi. It's a common approximation of pi. It's 99.998% correct is really what it is. So 22 divided by 7 is 3.142. Pi is the ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter. It's a mathematical constant. So, and it's encoded in our language. So every time you've ever said 7 in your life, you're also saying pi. So that's really the focus of the work. And like I said, I got this cipher from the opening lines of Genesis, of God doing his work in 6 days and resting on the 7th. And that's exactly what the cipher does. As you can see, goes up to 6, rests on 7, and then walks back down. So that's how I first came up with the cipher. And now I've done, 4 or 5 books now on it. And this same idea is actually found in the three-dimensional mathematics of you. So as you experience this human experience, as you walk through this life, you're actually in a sevenfold or a septenary, your entire being, because forward, reverse, up, down, left, and right, they all come to a confluence of that center point or that origin point, and that is the 7th point. So as you experience this whole reality, it's based on 7. So it makes sense that you'd find that in Genesis. Some of the things I show is that this cipher is actually encoded all over the world. I'm just going to give you a few examples. I could probably do a half-hour lecture of all the places that this is encoded. The UN logo. As you can see there, a lot of people know this. There's actually 33 sections in the middle of that, 32 around one actually. Goes up to, you can see the wreaths on the side there. Of course, that's an azimuthal equidistant map. Everybody knows that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And so the UN logo is actually, they're encoding this mathematical cipher. Another place we can find it is the emblem of Israel. Same thing. As you can see, the wreaths on the side there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And it's even got a 7-branch menorah in the middle there. And that's, if you can even see it, it's almost like it's the 6 branches, right, that rest on a single pillar. So this cipher that, as I said, encoded in the Bible, encoded in UN logo, emblem of Israel. It's actually found in the geometry of the cube as well, which Jaron mentioned. I don't know if you guys saw that movie Room 237, right? On the floor, it shows they got the hexagonal structure on the floor, and it's a reference to the moon. Well, in the heliocentric model, the moon has a diameter of 2,160 miles. Well, the cube has degrees of 2,160. So 6 sides times 360. So when, he's sitting on the floor there and he's got the Apollo shirt on, right? And they're showing the hexagonal structure. There's a reference to geometry in that movie as well. So the faulty geometry of our solar system. So the cipher embedded in the cube. Ouija board. Cipher is also on the Ouija board. So this sort of esoteric art, which is called gematria, which is putting numbers to letters, is, like I said, it's encoded all over the world. It's encoded slyly and cryptically all over the world. In a lot of ways, what I try to say is that this is basically to mock the people that don't know this kind of stuff. So that's what I'm trying to do, is elucidate and illuminate what has been hidden. One thing that's really important, if you note here, I'll go back to this here. If you notice, A, B, C, D, E, F, G rests on the G and then walks back down. N, O, P, Q, R, S, T rests on the T, walks back down. So 7 and 7, which remember, 7 encodes pi, encodes the ratio, the mathematical universal constant of pi is encoded in the number 7. And you find that 7 resting on the G and T. Well, that gives you 2 pi's in the alphabet. Well, this is pi and tau, which are 2 mathematical constants that are used in trigonometry all the time. And pi is, 3.142, 3.141, and tau is actually 2 pi, 6.28. And literally the symbol, the Greek, letter for tau is the T. And as I said, the cipher, boom. So like I said, I'm going to cover some other stuff here. We're not even really going to be covering gematria, but I wanted to give a little example of what it is I do. There's a ton of stuff encoded in this. Squaring numbers, triangular numbers, pi, tau, squaring the circle. You could go 12 around 1. There's just so much stuff is encoded in this cipher, and like I said, got it from the Bible. So that's the gematria in a nutshell. Just wanted to lay that in your lap. Hopefully intrigue you to go check out some of the videos. I've done a lot. So, when I got off the plane here, I was all sorts of triggered. I was just walking through the Denver International Airport. First thing I passed by is, if you see on the bottom there, it's Denver International Airport. You guys know the conspiracy of Denver International Airport, right? Right? It's nuts. It's insane. You think about, they built like these huge underground warehouses. Do you know how hard it is to dig through the rock around here? Yeah, anyway. So as I was walking by Denver International Airport, construction or cover-up? Are we creating the world's greatest airport? Or is it a conspiracy, right? This is them, in my opinion, just completely mocking humanity. And then walk past this bookstore, and it's Infinite Wonder, Scott Kelly, you freaking liar. So anyway, and that's supposedly some photographs he took from the ISS, and I think we all know how we feel about the ISS. So anyway, all sorts of triggered getting here. I went to the grocery store, and I was just checking out a point of purchase display there. Had a bunch of chocolate globes there. And I was like, can't I just have my savory milk chocolate without some globalist propaganda, please? Could I just enjoy my sweets without being propagandized? Is it so much to ask? So anyway, you guys are, you're all sort of like awake to these things. And isn't it amazing how much you see it now? It's just all over our world. It is constantly pushed upon you ever since we were children. This is, it's the work of Satan, as far as I'm concerned. So, or Satanists. Yeah. And before I left Hawaii, I actually flew here from Hawaii, and I went up to Mauna Kea, and they were selling astronaut space food. Let's just say I ain't buying it. So anyway, that was interesting. You can't help but see these things anymore. It's amazing. One thing I wanted to mention to everybody, I am getting married next. Yes. I think next June. You're all invited. It's a $10,000 gift minimum. And it'll be, we only accept cold, hard fiat currency. No. Anyway. Yeah, so the reason I'm saying I'm getting married, not just to get your applause or anything like that, but I'm here to say that you can fall in love and be on the flat earth. So, but when I met Jennifer, we were speaking. She actually lived in Hawaii and I lived in Oregon, and we were speaking on MySpace or Facebook or my book or face space, whatever it's called. And we were in the chat, and I told her, she was a globalist at the time, globe head at the time. And I told her in the chat before she came over and, we hung out for a month and really fell in love. I told her, I was like, well, what would you think if I told you I was a flat earther? And she just kind of laughed and she didn't take me seriously. Then she flew from Hawaii to Oregon and met me. And then she realized I was serious. And she was like, oh, you're actually a flat earther. So, but don't worry, it didn't take me long to get her into the cult, if you will. Because luckily for me, she still has at least 2 brain cells that she can rub together furiously and create some freaking fiction. Anyway. So all I had to do was show her a few things like this. Like, hey, baby, isn't it interesting that the World Trade Center, 60 people died building the World Trade Center. 60 people died building the World Trade Center. You know how many people died building the ISS? That's a big fat 0. 0. So I just said certain things like that to her, and she's like, yeah, that doesn't make a lick of sense at all. That's just ridiculous, So supposedly they put this whole International Space Station together in space, right? And going at, 10 times the speed of a bullet and 20 times the speed of sound? And no one died? Somebody look up right now, how many people died building the Golden Gate Bridge? I don't even know. Somebody look it up. You guys got phones on you, right? Shoot that off to me. Be interesting. So I also showed her some things like this. Like, hey, baby, do you remember that 5-part documentary series about the building of the International Space Station? She's like, I think it was by Nat Geo, and it was a whole IMAX. You remember the IMAX? You ever sit? You go to an IMAX, it's like 3D and all that. And you sit in the chairs and you look back at the canopy or the firmament, and there's all this. It's almost like they took that from Mother Earth or something. But anyway, I asked her, I was like, hey, have you ever seen that making of the International Space Station? And she's like, well, no, I haven't. It's because, yeah, that doesn't exist. Isn't it interesting? You can go to Netflix right now and you can see 50 documentaries about the horrors of Adolf Hitler, right? Look for one about the making of the International Space Station. One of the greatest engineering feats of all time. Forget the Great Pyramid of Giza. They built this thing going 17,500 miles an hour, and we have scant proof of it, of them building it. This is amazing. I think that documentary series was put together by the Weinstein brothers. You know that? So, yeah, so 11, right? Wow. Really interesting. Yeah. So, and I don't know about you silly flat earthers, but I still believe in black holes. Yeah, I mean, because it's actually the $52 million a day black hole in our budget. And so, I think that's called an event horizon, a horizon where all of our cash just goes over the curve. So, what a joke. Anyway, so it didn't take long for her to be like, I understand. If you're a rational person and you really go into this, you're going to come out a flat earther. You will. Can anybody imagine going back to the ball now? Can you imagine it? It's the most insane thing. I can't believe I even believed it as long as I did, but okay. How long do I got? 2 hours. All right. Jeez. So there's going to be a Marty dance-off for a half hour or something just to kill some time. Anyway, today we are not going to talk about flat Earth. Oh, boo. No. When they asked me to do this, I was like, yeah, I can put together a flat Earth presentation. That's no problem. But, as I was sitting here, I realized that everybody's done such a fantastic job of, going over the proofs, going over NASA's BS and the anomalies of that. We all know, the curvature formula and all this stuff. So we know all that, right? So I was like, you know what, let's just take a different route. And really what I want to talk about is God. It seems like a good thing to talk about, right? Yeah, right? What does flat Earth ultimately mean? What does it mean? It means this thing was designed. Top to bottom, bottom to top, the whole thing is designed. And that's what we're going to show today, is that you can prove, we're not throwing flat earth out the window, we're not talking about flat earth anymore, right? You can prove verifiably that this thing was created, that you were designed, and you can do it just by looking at the human body. And that's what we're going to do today. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, all that stuff that God put up there in the firmament and the canopy up there can be found right on here. Okay? And really what we're going to do is show that the human being is a perfectly proportioned, perfectly ratioed, temple to house the Holy Spirit, to move through this dimension that we call the human existence and earth. And what we're going to do is do that, and we're going to do it with numbers. Very simply, not going to be throwing any trigonometry at you today or anything like that. So, and that's, there's no getting around it. There's no getting around that this thing was designed. You don't just, it's not like just out of, some laws of physics thrown together and smashed together, you're going to get a flat plane and a dome and two lights that are really, there's just no way. You have to say it's designed. There's no way of getting around it. That's why, in my opinion, flat earth is so powerful in that way. You could actually, and they do, the modern physicists and scientists and all that sort of stuff, they make the case that, yes, this thing was just thrown together and it's just smashed together in particles, and, you're just this sort of like lumbering biological robot that has consciousness because of friggin' whatever, But, you can say that maybe for the ball model. Maybe you could say that, but you can't say it for flat earth. What I'm going to say is, you can't even say it for the ball model, because I came to these conclusions before I even understood flat earth. I understood that there was God. I understood that this was created. I understood that this was designed. And I'm going to show you one of the ways how I came to that conclusion. Creator, creation, and creativity. I always love it when people when people say like, I think creation was just an accident. Well, you can't use the word creation then, because create means there was a creator. So anytime somebody talks about the creation, you're talking about God. That's just how it is, right? And so what we're going to see is, yes, there is a creator. This is created, and we can understand it very simply through, integers, that we just need to use our creativity a little bit. That's all we need to do. And we're going to see that that's exactly what God did when he made this place. And what we're going to show is that just as the Bible says, Genesis 1:27, just as the Bible says, you are made in the image of God. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. So you are an image of God. Not according to Marty Leeds, according to this old book, right? So that means you should be able to look at yourself, look at the image that God created and say, oh yes, I can prove that. I can look at myself and say, yes, I am an image of God, just as it says. And that's what I'm going to hope to do today. What ultimately is the human being? The human being is a theophany. And what a theophany means, it's a visible manifestation to humankind of God or a God. You are symbolic of the attributes in which God used to manifest this plane of existence. You are the amalgamated principles in which God used to create everything up there and everything down here. And you are perfectly proportioned in numerous ways to prove this. You are a visible manifestation to God, to humankind of God or a God. You're a symbol of the living Spirit of God, if you will. And that's what's said when God made man in his own image. And this verse, it's Ephesians 4:2 to 4:7. I think this just sums up this notion of God, and really just the infinitude and just this, really the beauty and the oneness of God. And it says, with all lowliness and meekness, with long suffering, forbearing one another in love, endeavoring to keep the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. There is one body and one Spirit, even as you are called, in one hope of your calling, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God, and Father of all, who is above all, and through all, and in you all. So where's God? And then the next verse is, but unto every one of us is given grace according to the measure, the gift of Christ. One God and Father of all. And where is God? He's above the creation. He's through the creation. And he's in you. Not according to Marty Leeds, according to Ephesians. So we're gonna prove that today. And we're going to do that by looking up in the heavens. Now, the first question is, you have these questions like, what are the stars? Like, you get this from heliocentrists all the time. Oh, was the moon flat too, bro? Right? I don't know. I don't know. It's like, what are the stars? What's the moon? What's the sun? What's the blackness of space? What are the planets? I don't know. I ain't got a clue. Never been to the stars, never been to the moon. No one's ever been to the moon. Never going to touch the sun. Too damn hot. Moon's probably too cold. What are the planets? I don't know. We have no idea what that stuff is up there. As far as we know, it's just some lights. So how do we have a relationship with that stuff up there? How can we say that, yes, I do know that God manifested me from his kingdom above? What are the stars? What are the moon? What are the sun? I don't know. But you know what we can do? We can track and map the cycles of all of those heavenly bodies. And this is what countless cultures have been doing, as far as I know, throughout history and prehistory as well. So I don't know what the stars are. I don't know what the moon is. I don't know what the sun is. But I do know that I can count them. I can get those numbers. And I can see that they manifest on me. And so that's what we're going to do. And, when I've gotten this several times from people that read the Bible, they say, like, oh, numbers, they have nothing to do with the Bible. And it's like that moment when a biblical literalist tells me that numbers have nothing to do with God's holy word. And then I remind them that Numbers is the fourth book of the King James Bible. But numbers don't have anything to do with anything. First thing we're going to look at is, let's look at this first. Let's look at, when you look at the world in which we've been given, we have like Roman gods in the sky, and then the days of the week, they're named by like Norse gods and things like that, right? And then you actually look at the terminology that we use for time, and it's actually all based on Egyptian gods. There's like no question about it. Hours comes from the sun god Horus. Minutes actually comes from the god of fecundity and fertility, Min. And then when the sun sets, that's based on the Egyptian god Set. And Horus rises, Horus is the sun, and then, of course, his antithesis is Set. Set brings him down and makes him the sun set, So this stuff has, this has lasted for thousands of years, and it somehow is manifested into our own language. So, and this is, when they say, let me make sure. People say, oh, it's like the Egyptians, that's, paganism or something like that. You have to remember Acts 7:22, 22 divided by 7 is pi, by the way. Acts 7:22, it says, Moses was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians and was wise and was mighty in words and deeds, So Moses was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians. So when Moses, before he had that great Sinaitic revelation directly from God, he learned his stuff from Egypt. So, and this is what we say when you are perfectly proportioned to this creation. And I don't know if you guys have seen this before, but it's basically a way that you can map time just with your hands. So if you stick your hands out, towards the horizon, just as you see right there, you can actually count an hour. And so this is an hour hand, the hands of the clock. Where do you think it comes from? Your hand. So you put your thumb down and your four fingers there as you put it towards the horizon. That's, this is general. This is not exact, but, it just kind of gives you this proportionality. That's an hour, So if you're standing there, you're watching the sunrise and say, go, sunrise is at 6:30. I go like here, it's about 7:30. You go 8:30, 9:30, 10:30, 11:30, 12. And as you can see, your fingers are actually 15-minute segments, right? So that's an hour hand. Now look at and we're going to look at the phalanges of the hands and everything like that, but now just look at those four fingers. You have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and these are your bone segments called phalanges on your fingers, right? Well, that's 12 separated into a quadrant, 3 each. Well, what is that? That's the zodiac. That's the exact path that the sun travels, which you're marking with your hand. And how many hours of day? How many hours of night? 24, right? 12 and 12. That's exactly what you got on your fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You got 12 here, you got 12 here. Boom. That's 24 hours a day that you can map with your hands. If you put, supposedly, if you put your finger out to the eclipse, your finger actually marks 1 degree of the 360-degree cycle. So if you put your finger out to that horizon, that generally marks about 1 degree. So you can see, I mean, it's pretty clear that you are perfectly proportioned to this creation, perfectly proportioned. So we're going to look at some of the other mathematics of the hands. Thank you. Don't tell the globalists. Shh. I want them to know, right? These are the kind of things that I wish I was taught when I was a kid. Because there's all the years I spent, I was an atheist, agnostic, all that sort of stuff, right? I didn't really, it's not like I believed in God or I didn't believe in God. But if I would have been shown stuff like this when I was a kid, I think it would be a lot easier for me to understand that this thing was created. And of course I wasn't lied to about a spinning ball going 1,037.5 miles at the equator or whatever. That might have helped too. And really when we look at the Bible actually tells us about the importance of the hands. And this is the opening pages of the New Testament, where John's out there, he's preaching, saying, "Repent ye, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand." From that time, Jesus began to preach and say, "Repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. And as you go, preach, saying, the kingdom of heaven is at hand." So we say, where is God's kingdom? What's up there? That's where God is, right? Yeah? But God is above all, and through all, and in you all. Funny enough, this is the thing you use to open the book to read the Bible. And what we're going to do is we just looked at the fact that, you have the path of the sun through the zodiac and the 12 ages of the zodiac right on your fingers. And then you have the hours right on your hands. So we see that the sun is clearly, you can map and track the sun with your hands here. What we're going to do is actually show that, the two lights, the greater light and the lesser light, the sun and the moon, we're actually going to show how the moon is on your hands as well. And this is pretty dang interesting. So first we got to talk about der Mond. So there's two basic ways that you can map the moon, right? And it's a sidereal lunar month and a synodic lunar month, okay? And we're going to look at both of these numbers. But a sidereal lunar month is the length of time it takes for the moon to return to a given star in the sky. And a synodic lunar month is the length of time between new moons. So from new moon to new moon, that period is about 29 and a half days. And then the sidereal lunar month is basically the time it takes, about 27.3 days. So when we're looking at whole integers, right? We're looking at integers or whole numbers, right? We're not looking at the fractions or the decimals there. Basically, you got two numbers there, 27, 29.29, right? 27 and 29, right? Well, essentially the difference between these two numbers is 28. It's very, very close to 28. And the number 28 has been used to actually map the moon by numerous cultures. I'll cover one or two here. In a lunar calendar. So it'd be a 13-month, 28-day cycle. And the month actually comes from the word moon, right? So we know they're talking about the moon. It's in some respect. So you got that sidereal cycle, you got that synodic cycle. You take the mean or average between those two, you got 28. Well, where's 28, right? So here, I'll show this. Oh, same thing. 28 is right on your hands. Okay, so we just looked at the phalanges of your hands. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14, right? You got 14 right here. Well, what's 14 plus 14? It's 28. So the path that the moon takes, 28-day cycle, is right on your hands. And what's interesting is that cycle, as it goes through the waxing and waning and gibbous and, the crescent, right? There's a point where the moon actually halves itself. Everybody's seen it, right? The moon essentially it basically creates pi on the moon, right? Well, in that cycle, that would be the 14th day. So as the moon halves itself, you got 14 here, and you got 14 here. And that's exactly what your hands have, right? So, but it's not just your hands. God also put it on your feet. So if we look here, 28 phalanges on your hands. You got 14 here and you got 14 here, right? 1, 2, and then 12. So you got 14, 14. Same thing on your feet. Your big toe has 2 phalanges, and your little piggies there, they each got 3. So that makes 28 down here and 28 up here. Okay? So that is a mathematical template that has been given to you for you to really study yourself and realize that you are an image of God. You know? You see that's like, oh, that lunar cycle is up here and down there. Pretty magical. Now, 28 is actually the 7th triangular number. Now, what does that mean, right? It means that if you add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 together, you get 28, right? How many days did it take God to build creation? 6, and rested on what? 7. 6 and rested on 7. That's exactly what you are. So God took 6 days and rested on the 7th to create all of creation. And then he said, hey, you're also an image of me. And when you experience this creation, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you rest on the 7th point. You add through those, and you get the mathematical template right here and down there. So, and this is not, for those people out there that's like, oh, this is not numerology. This is just adding 1 through 7. This is basic mathematics that really children can learn to do, you know. So yes, adding 1 through 7 equals 28. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sums to 28. If you multiply those numbers, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you multiply through them, you get the number 5,040. And man, I really wish I did have 2 hours that I could talk about that number, but I don't. So 5,040, multiplying 1 through 7, 5,040. Adding 1 through 7, 28. 5,040 divided by 28 is what? 180. What's 180? Semicircle. It's what you experience every single day when you look at the sun. Rises over there, sets over there, does a 180 arc over you. It's when you look at your head, that's what you can turn your head, about 180 degrees. It's the internal degrees of the triangle. That's all found in the number 7. And then you wonder why God did his work in 6 days and rested on that 7th. You know, these are mathematical constants that are given to you right on your hands and toes, you know, hands and feet. You not only does 7 become this sort of principal number within creation, not only all of creation, but your creation as well. Look at all the ways that we experience 7 in our world, right? 7 colors of the rainbow. We just went through the 3-dimensional mathematics of you as 7, right? You got 7 neck bones here, right? You've got 7 stars in the Big Dipper, right? You got 7 notes of the major scale. I mean, we could go on and on and on, the number of places you find 7 in our world, right? We're also going to see that this number 7 and the number 28 is actually what brings you into this world. It's the mathematical archetype that God put forward to bring that spirit into the material plane. And what is that? Well, that's the period of menstruation. So how to determine the most fertile day, and this comes from md-health.com, and it says the first day of a woman's period is taken as the starting point of the cycle. And if the cycle is a 28-day cycle, then the 14th day after a period is estimated to be the ovulation. So women go through their periodicity, their menstrual cycle, in roughly about 28 days, and the egg drops in the uterus or the womb on roughly around the 14th day. Well, where's that? It's right here. It's right here. 14. Egg drops right in the middle of them. Now that is what, and then what happens after that, right? Woman gets pregnant, they go through a 9-month cycle, right? So that is, and then, roughly, of course, these are all, when we talk about mathematical archetypes, we're talking about rough geometric templates that God has put forward that literally human beings move through. So does everybody born on, it's 9 months, right, that of human gestation, 30 days each. Is everybody born on the 270th day? No, of course not, right? Does the egg drop always on the 14th day? No, but there's general archetypes and, mathematical archetypes that all of this stuff follows, that God put forward. Put them right here. That is the menstruation cycle right there. 0 to 14, ovulation happens. That's what brings you into earth. So, when we read the opening pages of the Holy Bible, it's saying so much more than most people are reading when they pick that thing up. It's giving you all, there's so much just in the number 7. Mind you, the number 7 in English encodes pi as well. This was, once again, adding 1 through 7 equals 28, right? And then I said a lunar calendar is 13 months, 28 days each. So 13 times 28 is 364, okay? And this is a calendar that's been used by many different cultures and things like that. I actually learned this whole thing from this guy, Kevin Najuan was his name, and is his name. And he's from the Anishinaabe tribe up in Canada. And so one of these old things that they would actually teach the children was that you had 13, you could call them joints or separations of the body. You got the neck, you got the 2 shoulders, you got the 2 elbows, 2 wrists, 2 hips, 2 knees, and 2 ankles. And ultimately that's 13, as you can see there. And so I actually learned this from an old, native, indigenous Aboriginal native of Canada or the Americas, I guess you would say. So when you look at, you got 28 up here, and you got 28 down there, and you got 13 divisions separating between the 28 and 28 down there, 13 times 20, your body's a calendar. Of course it should be. God made you in his image. He's in control of this whole thing. What's so interesting is that, going back to this calendar, think about how this actually works within Jesus and his disciples, right? 13 months and 28 days. 13 months, 28 days, 364. How many disciples did Jesus have? 12 disciples. 12, and Jesus makes 13. That means Jesus and his disciples and their hands create a lunar calendar as well. And that's just counting the phalanges of Jesus and his disciples. And that's giving you a calendar. Nathan Thompson actually mentioned this, and I want to show this. And this is information. It's basically a sacred system of information that's been known worldwide. And so he mentioned this, and I just want to give a sketch to it. If you can see, like around the turtle there's like 28 little, sections there. And in the middle, there's actually 13, right? So the back of the turtle shell is 13 times 28, which is 364, which is the exact same thing you find on your human body and the exact same thing you find with Jesus and his 12 disciples. And then, we hear this lore about, what does the flat earth rest on, bro? Rests on a turtle. You bet your ass it does. I want to show this. We're talking about number 7 here, right? We're just focusing on the number 7. I'm not going to do any complex math here. Triple sevens, 7 times 7 times 7 is 343. And 7 plus 7 plus 7 is 21. Well, what's 343 plus 21? It's 364. So the same thing with Jesus and his disciples, same thing the turtle, same thing with you. It's literally just encoded in the number 7. A calendar, 7 days a week. Now, some of the work that I do, I'm just going to jump into gematria a little bit here because I'm at the Flat Earth Conference and this is pretty pertinent to what we're discussing. But this is the 7 astronauts, whatever they call them now, that supposedly died in the Challenger explosion. And people have shown that these people are obviously still alive. But this is using a septenary cipher. So the cipher I just showed you, 7-fold cipher, all based on 7 astronauts, right? Dick Scobie, Michael Smith, Ronald McNair, Ellison Onizuka, Judith Resnick, Gregory Jarvis, and Krista McAuliffe. 7 astronauts. What is that total in gematria? 343. 343. 343. When I did that, I was pretty creeped out, to be honest. It's kind of weird. So anyway, that's the kind of stuff that I look at and I focus on my channel. So I just wanted to throw that in there just to kind of show you, what's going on. Okay, back to the hands. Look at this. This is, once again, Moses was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians. He was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians. Okay, so if you studied Egyptology at all, you'll see that this is a pretty common thing. That their hands are there. It's very interesting the way they've drawn their hands and all this stuff. And so basically, what they're doing right there is trying to show you exactly what I just showed you. That you are this perfectly proportioned temple of God that houses a Holy Spirit within. And you can look to the horizon and you can see that. And that's what they're showing there with that palm, the 4 fingers, hours of the clock, hands of the clock. What I want to do is look at the entire arm and the hand, okay? So, I know I'm throwing a lot of math at you, I'm sorry. But we just talked about 28, right? 28 phalanges of your 2 hands. And then we talked about the sidereal lunar month is 27.3 days. And the synodic lunar month is 29.5 days, right? Well, your body isn't made with halves, right? Your body's made with whole bones and, things like that. They're all, it's like this is 1 phalange 2. It's not like 1.5 phalanges or 1.3 phalanges. No, it's 1, right? So the only way to really measure yourself is to use whole numbers. So we're going to look at the mathematics of the human hands again. You have 27 bones in your hand. So you've got 14 phalanges, 5 metacarpals, 8 in the wrist there. So you have 27 bones in your hand. Well, a sidereal lunar month is 27.3. So not only did you have a month of 28, you also have very close, only 0.3 off, of a lunar month on your hand. And you actually have 2 of them because you got 27 bones here and 27 bones here. Now, look at the rest of your hand. Look at the rest of your arm. You have 2 bones here, right? And it's called the radius, which is a mathematical term, by the way. So radius and the ulna, right? So you got 27 bones here in your hand, and then you got 2 more to fill out the arm. Well, what is that? That's 29. What's that? Synodic lunar month. And you got 2 of them. This is what we're saying when God made man in his own image. Now, what they're showing there is that's known as the Egyptian cubit or royal cubit. This was the hieroglyph that they used for the royal cubit. And so the royal cubit was based on your arm. So from your elbow right here to the tip of your finger was called the cubit. So what the cubit is actually doing is showing you that you are built with proportionality, just like we talked about. So if you draw a perfect pentagram, you could do this too, and I encourage you to do it, right? If you draw a perfect pentagram, it's going to be very, very close anyway. That this section of your arm from here to basically the center of your wrist here will be considered 1. And the rest of your hand will be 0.618. And this is what's known as the golden mean, the golden ratio, phi. And what, people see a pentagram and all of a sudden, a lot of times they'll think like, oh, it's occult symbolism or stuff like that. No, it's just geometry. That's just geometry. And what that geometry is telling you about is that, once again, you are this perfect microcosm of a macrocosm. The Pentateuch, the Torah, 5 books, So what phi is, it's a Greek letter, letter. It's a signature of intelligence. That's what it is. When you see that, you can see that's like, oh man, no. You're, like I said, you're perfectly, God put that forward. This is that God left this for us. This wasn't made up by man. And the ratio of phi is all over your body. It's in the cochlea of your ear, once again, this is very rough, but very close. From the bottom of your feet to roughly your navel here is 1, and then the rest of the navel to the top of the head is 0.618. Your face is, it's got pi or phi all over, So this is a signature of intelligence. And this is why, and what I actually show is this is encoded all over the Bible. It's encoded in the first 2 words of in the beginning. So That's what they're focusing on there. So you got, I mean, think about this. You got a sidereal lunar month. You got a synodic lunar month. You got a regular 28-day lunar month. And then you've got the proportion of phi right on your arm. That is called design. I don't care what the shape of the earth is. All I need to do is look at this image of God and I can be like, oh, yeah, this is designed. Phi is, even phonetically, if you look at the phonology, phi is where we get the word 5. And this is with the golden mean, the golden ratio, golden proportion. Perfectly proportions with the pentagram. 5. 5. So, that's a lot of the hands. I don't know how much time do I have. How much time do I have? 5 minutes, that's perfect. Okay, cool. I just want to show a few other things too about looking at the mathematics of the human being and showing how that you are, like I said, you're like this microcosm of the macrocosm. You're this perfect amalgamation of the forces in which God put forward to create and manifest this creation. You are this perfect amalgamation of that. You have 12 hours a day, 12 hours a night. We talked about this, right? You got 12 phalanges here, 12 phalanges here. You know how many ribs you have? 12 here and 12 here. 20 baby teeth, you lose those baby teeth, you get 32 adult teeth. How many is that? It's 52. And it's based on what? The number of weeks in the year. And what's that based on? The number 7. So, just say, and then by the way, what's the number between 20 and 32? It's 12 once again. But so there you go. All you have to do is count your teeth. This is God being creative. Creator, creation, creativity. 52 total teeth, same with the bones in the feet. So when you walk firmly on this Mother Earth, you got 26 bones in your left foot, 26 bones in your right foot, and that's 52. That's the number of weeks in the year based on 7. And last one I want to look at here, and then I will let you all go. Your skull. Once again, we're going back to the number 7 here. You have 14 bones in your skull. This is your skull minus your mandible, right? So when you just look at the head, you have 14 facial bones and 8 bones that make up the cap. So 14 here and 8 here, which means you have a total of 22 bones, right? Well, you also have 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 nostrils, and 1 mouth. 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 nostrils, and 1 mouth. That means you have 22 bones giving you 7 orifices. 22 bones giving you 7 orifices. And what is that? That'd be pi, folks. That would be pi. The big kahuna upstairs is pretty clever, isn't he? Guy in the sky is pretty dang clever. So you've been walking around with pi in your head your whole life. So I'm going to leave it at that. Use your head. Be pious and keep it flat, okay? Thanks.